Straight talk from Israel. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
How quickly things can spiral out of control in a seemingly idyllic lifestyle. You know, I have to say I'm really glad that I do not have to raise little children in today's world. And I think that if I remember correctly, my parents said that they were glad that they didn't have to raise me and my siblings in a world that came after the late 60s. Well, actually, I was growing up in the late 60s, too, so that's not true. But later on, the world just seems to be spiraling out of control. And when I say out of control, I mean on the foundations that the United States was founded on, that family, and as they say, faith is founded on, of value systems, family values. We're raised in a world of decadence, a world of instant gratification, and a world today where that famous grasshopper, was it the grasshopper and the ant song? The world owes me a living. Deedle diddle dodle diddle dum. What was that from? The ant and the grasshopper. Very, 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 very worrisome to see a society today that thinks that everything, as we say in Hebrew, magia lahem, everything is coming to them. Give me, give me, give me, give me, give me. People who haven't worked or built anything now destroying, and the motto of the Democratic Party in the United States being build back better, which means, of course, at first they have to destroy before they can build back. So what's happening in the United States? Should Jews stay there? I remember seeing just recently signs on the Los Angeles freeways over there saying Jews are the cause for the race wars. Honk if you agree. And people were honking.
Always challenging the status quo. Hello, I'm Rod Bryant on Beyond the Matrix here at IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. I want to encourage you to listen each week, every Wednesday at the same time, for an amazing show that will challenge you, inform you, and inspire. News, views, and wisdom for the nations here on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. Don't forget, Beyond the Matrix every week, Wednesday, here on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com.
How quickly things can spiral out of control in a seemingly idyllic lifestyle. You know, I was just watching a little clip of Mark Levin, because I usually watch the Israeli news and a little bit of Fox in the morning, and later on I watch Al Jazeera. I like to see what's going on all over the world. And I see Mark Levin there with the American flag behind him, I'm thinking, that he's thinking, if I just fight hard enough, if we just wake up enough Americans, we're going to beat it. We're going to beat it. And I'm thinking, my poor, poor boy, don't you know that it's over? It's over. The American dream, I believe, and sadly, is over. It's never going to be the same way it was unless you totally wipe out the left. And I don't think that the left is going to be wiped out. There's just too many of them and too many illegal immigrants who are being fed by the left and taken care of by the left. They're not going to let the left die either. But here to talk about more what's going on in the United States and how it's affecting the American dream, and especially the Jews who live in America, who are trying with everything to hold on to that American dream, not to have to uproot themselves like we've had to do throughout history. And now we have, thank God, we have a home, a country to come back to, our own sovereign, modern state of Israel to come back to. Well, we're going to be examining all of this. I want to let you know that you can call in if you have any comments or questions. We are live if you're listening between 7 to 8 a.m. Holy Time right here in the land of Israel, or if it's between midnight to 1 a.m. U.S. Eastern Time. That means that we are live and you can call in. The numbers are on the top of our homepage at israelnewstalkradio.com. So today we're going to be talking with Eliakim Cohen. He's a Jewish activist who regularly posts in the social media on Jewish life and politics as it pertains to Israel and the Jewish people. His passion is Aliyah and the spreading of the light of Torah. He's here to talk about what's happening in the United States right now and the shocking reminder of how quickly things can spiral out of control in a seemingly idyllic lifestyle, and the resulting danger that Jews now find themselves in. So welcome to the show, Eliakim Cohen.
Wow, Tamar, thank you so much for having me. What a treat. The queen of Israeli radio.
You're so flattery will get you everywhere, as they say. All right. Now, you wrote me, and you used an interesting word. You wrote that what's going on with the BLM, the Black Lives Matter, and the liberal violence engulfing American cities is mind-boggling. Why did you use that word, mind-boggling?
Because you take a place like, let's take Portland out of the equation. You take Kenosha, Wisconsin, which you use the term idyllic. I said the same term to my mom yesterday. You take Kenosha, Wisconsin. We're talking salt of the earth, people, communities. Wisconsin's really not left-wing. I mean, I believe they voted for Trump in the last election. And what has happened in Kenosha, Wisconsin in the past, I believe, week or 8 days since a child molester, Jacob Blake, was shot after resisting arrest, and the cops were there to serve him a warrant and arrest him. What has happened to that city is mind-boggling. It is absolutely mind-boggling how you take communities in America, and within a week they are just destroyed. I saw pictures of a 40-year-old furniture, family-owned business, destroyed, which hits close to home. We used to have a furniture business in Atlanta. And I remember in about 2004, my dad just looked at me one day and he said, something's just not right with this country anymore. The customers were getting more obnoxious. You're right. The American dream is over. There is no saving the American dream. It might be tough for some of the people listening, but this violence should be a wake-up call. Corona is not even close to being the top story of 2020. The anarchy riots happening in America that are heavily funded, heavily organized. I just saw a picture of dozens of Black Lives Matter's trucks that were lined up in a sort of an abandoned parking lot, waiting to bus and ship people to different riot locations in America. There's been people that have posted pictures of pallets of big stones that were just dropped on sidewalks in California, in Oakland, ready to be thrown at windows of businesses and at people, and unfortunately at the police. I mean, if people think that this is sporadic, then you're only watching CNN, and you might only even be watching Fox. People need to do a little more research, because that's really what I do. You have to look at actual videos from on the ground. You can't trust the mainstream media. You can't trust even Fox. It is shocking. It is the definition of mind-boggling. And there is no end in sight to this, because if the left wins, they will push this and they will condone this and they even encourage this. And when the right wins, the left now has their own sort of safety net. They can riot and loot and cause basically pandemonium in any city that they want. And until Trump sends in the National Guard, this is the reality of America, and it's not going to end. It is not going to get better. This is the new, people keep talking about the new normal of Corona. This is the new normal of America. When the left is upset, they now have a template for how to get their message out and their word out, and basically to get their way. And that should terrify every American, but especially the Jews, because we are directly in the crosshairs here. Delaware Chabad House was just burned down. When this whole BLM riot started in California, the first thing they targeted was Jewish synagogues, Jewish institutions. They were burned down. And it was shocking to these, left-wing liberal Jews in America. They could not understand why all their support for BLM and abortion and all these left-wing things, they're still being targeted because they just still do not get the oldest hatred in history. It is the deepest hatred, and unfortunately, the black community is probably the most anti-Semitic. I mean, if you're black out there and you're listening, I'm really don't mean to sound racist, but that's just a fact. I mean, this has been going on in Brooklyn for about a decade now. You can see CCTV footage all over Brooklyn of blacks attacking religious Jews, and this is not a new phenomenon. It's just now starting to make news because other people are now being attacked. But this has been happening to the Jews for at least a decade in very large cities across America.
Yet, Eliakim, if you look at the newsreels and the videos being taken at these peaceful protests, most of these BLM people that I've seen are white, which is very interesting. And a lot of blacks in America are screaming, we want the police. We don't want to defund the police. And they're being, a lot of them are just being used, they feel. And it's a terrible situation. But again, the media wants to, is hand in hand with these protesters. And they keep calling them peaceful protesters. Yes, there's a few of them that are violent, but they're by and large peaceful protesters. What do you have to say about that?
Did you? So, I mean, you would think that it was a parody site. CNN had their reporter in Kenosha, and the tagline for when they brought him up on the screen, he looked like he was in the middle of a war zone. There were like 7 different burning buildings behind him. It was dark out. I mean, it looked like literally he was at the gates of hell. And the tagline, I mean, this has been all over social media. The tagline was "Fiery yet mostly peaceful protests engulfs Kenosha." I mean, people thought it was like an Onion, the satire website. They thought it was an Onion, byline. The media is, I mean, thankfully people are waking up to this, and the poll numbers, the trust in the media is literally at rock bottom, thank God. But, I mean, what they are doing, really, they're the ones that have the blood on their hands, because a 5-year-old white kid is shot by a black guy, nothing. Jacob Blake and George Floyd. I mean, these are really the dregs of humanity. And now they're, the hero, the icons of the left. I mean, George Floyd had like 7 different funerals, white horse-drawn carriage. I mean,
and a gold casket. Don't forget the gold casket. Wait, hang on 1 second. We're going to a break in 2 minutes, and literally 2 minutes. Let's quickly take a phone call. We have joining us David from Washington State. Hi, David. What is your comment or question? Go ahead.
Your guest said he thought the American dream was dead. I really disagree with that. We're going through a tough time, and there's all these riots and things going on, but like in Portland, for example, there was all kind. We know the craziness is going on there, but it was not all of downtown Portland. It was isolated to the U.S. federal courthouse. And granted, since then, there's been some things going off into the suburbs and stuff. But I really see this as a great awakening, Tamar.
Right.
That people are waking up, that people are starting to fight back, and I think you're going to see more of that. And I hate to say that, but I think you're going to see more of it because, like conservatives like me, we've had enough. We've had enough. There's been these kids with temper tantrums. It's time for the adults to come into the room and take care of this. And if the police aren't, we have our Second Amendment rights that where I live, a lot of people believe in, and we have that to fall back on.
Okay,
So,
hang on right there because we're going to a break right now, David. And you know what? I want to discuss what you said. I'm going to let you go right now. If you want to call back again in the next segment, feel free to do so. But I want to discuss what you said with our guest, that conservatives, you say, have had enough. But again, I want to say that who controls the streets, and cities are dying. Cities today, major cities in the United States are dying. So we'll discuss that.
Chicago, they're dead.
Yeah, we'll discuss that as well. Everybody, we're going to be right back. And remember, you can call in. We'll be right back.
Shalom, everybody. Making a difference often takes just one moment and one person at a time. I am Orly Benny Davis, your show host on Israel News Talk Radios from Jerusalem with love. You'll be hearing people talking about politics, religion, social issues, and making a better tomorrow. Join me, Orly Benny Davis, for God and Country. From Jerusalem with love.
Wednesdays on Israel News Talk Radio.
Psalm 23, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Did you know this psalm and many others were composed by a Jewish shepherd and musician who later became a king? Would you like to know some of the inner meanings of psalms to help you connect with God and strengthen your soul? An exciting and easy-to-read book is now available which will help you do just that. Software for the Soul, Psalms for Everyone, available on Kindle, Audible, and Amazon.com. Software for the Soul.
Modesty at the beach? It isn't just about body image. It's about feeling good. Modest swimsuits, so we don't get burned by the sun.
So we won't get ogled by strangers.
So we'll feel free to express ourselves without the need to expose ourselves.
Let Marcy Modest help you to cover up what you want, how you want.
Made in Israel. Visit marcymodest.com. That's MARSEA modest.com.
And get a 10% discount on your first purchase.
All right, we are back here at the Tamar Yonah Show on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com, and we're talking about the rioting that's going on in the United States and how America is changing, how America is dividing up. You know, it's kind of like the opposite of like an embryo when it's formed, you know, everything closes together. Here we've got something that's dividing. It's almost like the North and the South in the Civil War, sadly. And I say this sadly because America was founded on such wonderful values, and the idea that if you worked hard enough and you had, lady luck on your shoulder, that you could achieve anything. And a poor person can grow up and become rich. And there was so much opportunity. Today, it seems that the youth just want to suck off the teat of the government. Take care of me. And with that, they're giving up their rights. And we see this huge divide now between Americans who want to hold on to the American dream and others who want to fundamentally change America. The words of Obama. When I hear those words, I think of Barack Hussein Obama saying that. And we had a very interesting call from David from Washington State, and he was saying that he believes that the conservatives are fed up. But before I bring you back, Eliakim, to talk about this, I want to make a statement as well. And I want to say that I believe you, David, that conservatives have had enough. The question is, are there enough conservatives, and are there enough conservatives that are willing to go and do something about it? Because as our wise Shifra Hoffman, she was a weekly guest here on the station for years. She was always saying the Constitution in America, which guarantees these fundamental rights, the Constitution is only as strong as the people who are willing to go out and defend it. And if you've got thugs who are on the streets intimidating people, burning things down, destroying businesses, destroying cities, even though they may be the minority, if they're the ones who are doing these things and the conservatives sit quiet or there just aren't enough of them, we're going to see America fundamentally changed. So let me bring back my guest now, Eliakim Cohen. Again, he's a Jewish activist on the social media. So, Eliakim, what do you have to say about what David said about the conservatives have had enough? What do you see happening?
Look, I think he makes a a good point. I even mentioned early on when I was talking that unless Trump is willing to send in, I'm talking a big National Guard for it. I'm not talking 500. I'm talking to take control of the streets and clean up this trash. I mean, they're trash. Just clean up this trash that's on the street. The American dream is dead. And I'll say even more, if he is willing to do that, I mean, is that really the American dream? That you have to have thousands of troops patrolling your street? I mean, America's a big country. It's about 350 million people. Even if you want to say that only 1% of them are bad, that's 3.5 million people. 3.5 million people can do quite a lot of damage. I mean, there's only 4.5 million Jews in America. So one of the problems in America is that it's just so vast and there's such a huge population that it is going to be hard to control it because, like you see with Kenosha, you can't have troops everywhere. I mean, that's not really the American dream. And Kenosha is the perfect example of why I'm saying that there is no coming back from this, is you have a town that probably no one's ever even heard of, and now it is front page news all over the world, and it's a war zone. I mean, the pictures from there, literally, you'd think you're in Mogadishu. So in a way, I'd like to say optimistically that David is right, because you know what? There are a lot of conservatives, and the conservatives are the ones that are armed to the teeth. But are the conservatives really willing to go out there like, the Kyle Rittenhouse, that 17-year-old hero that, was defending his own life and shot dead 2 people and blew another one's arm off? I don't know how many people are willing to do that. So, I mean, if the American dream is having National Guard patrolling the streets, then yes, maybe the American dream will return. But I don't really think that that's what Americans really think is their ideal lifestyle.
Okay,
so.
But I want to say here also that the even if you got some of these thugs and rioters off of the streets, it's not just them; it's the people behind them that are funding this, that are have the power and have the money and have their agenda. So if they can't use these little puppets on the streets, then they will go to use some other methods of getting their agenda through, their globalist.
Well, you brought up that's a very good point, because I was going to say the most institutionalized part of all of this is, like you said, that the majority of these Black Lives Matters rioters are white. So they said about 1 in 6 of the quote-unquote protesters are actually black. So where are these 5/6 of young, radically liberal white kids coming from? They're coming from schools. They're coming from Portland State University. They're coming from the UC, system of 9. The things that they're learning on these campuses, this is one of the things that I post about, because obviously, as most people are listening know, anti-Israel sentiment on American campuses is rampant. Hating Israel has become not only the norm, it's encouraged, because everyone wants to support the underdog, and there's no bigger quote-unquote underdog in the world than the Palestinians. So you see these Black Lives Matters rioters, they're holding up Palestinian flags, they're putting Free Palestine on synagogues. So, the scariest part about this is that the next generation is basically insane. They think 2 + 2 = 5, and they are willing to go out. There was this, cute little 20-something-year-old girl that firebombed the police. She's going to jail for, I think, 12 years now. She looked like she came from a Disney movie. To get a girl that radical to fight for something that she doesn't even really know what she's fighting for, that's scary. And that's why I think that the American dream is over, because you have millions of these little twits, that live in safe space bubbles and are offended by everything. These are the people that are out there causing the most damage, and that should terrify people. These are kids. These are not, 50-year-old adults or 40. These are 18-year-old kids that have been given trophies their whole life and think that the whole world revolves around them. They have no work ethic, and they're being paid and funded and called heroes for going out and, Jesse
burning
Waters
buildings
on Fox
down.
News,
Yeah.
Burning buildings. And like we talked about during the break, Dave said that it was just, localized with the federal courthouse. Well, do you know what they did to the federal courthouse? They cemented in the doors and then tried to firebomb the federal troops inside. We're not talking your local donut cops. These were federal troops armed to the teeth inside the federal courthouse, and these mostly white college kids tried to burn them alive inside the courthouse. I mean, that's
all
why
right.
I said mind
Actually, Eliakim, we have David back, and he called back in. David, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I really, I was listening. I really like the points he was making. The one thing I just want to bring up, you said if we had to have like the National Guard patrolling or being everywhere, is that the American dream? And that's a good point. But I don't know if it'll come down to the National Guard. Let me give you an example. I think it was last month before, when the whole defund the police thing started, there was going to be a defund the police protest or march, whatever you want to call it, in Boise, Idaho. Well, word got out, and 3,000 armed patriots, I'll use the word patriots, showed up. They outnumbered the protesters 5 or 6 to 1, and surprisingly, there really wasn't much of a protest or a march. Where I live, there was heard that Antifa was coming here, and within a couple hours, there was a couple hundred patriots out in storefronts, in front of stores, at the mall, and again, nothing happened. And I think that's what it's going to get. That's what will happen. Maybe not so much the National Guard, because they can't mobilize.
Yeah, but you know what, David, it's a good point that you're bringing up, but I want to say that there's something called harassment. It means how long will people be able to leave and go out and guard against these punks when the punks are not employed and they every day can go and do this? I mean, how often are people going to be able to take off and go and guard things too, if they do it over and over again?
Yeah,
Dave,
that's a good point. That's a good point. But, I think people come to a point, it's like, what's really important, if I'm not out here protecting this, like, this country goes down the drain. I don't have a job anyway. So, I think you have to look at the balances, weigh your options. Yeah, it's not ideal, I know it, but I still think that we're going to come through this and people are going to stand up, and we're going to go through. November is going to, be horrible. But I think things will calm down into next year. But people are going to stand up. And tomorrow, I'm 64 years old. Okay,
we only have 60 seconds left, David.
I'm still willing to die for this country.
Well, hopefully you won't have to. Hopefully you can live for America.
Yeah, because I want to come see you next year.
What did you say?
He's going to come see us.
Because I want to come and see you next year.
That would be lovely.
I just want to say one thing, Tamar, if I can.
Go ahead. Thank you for your call, David. Go ahead.
Thank you.
My dad and my sister were just in South Dakota. They do a father-daughter trip every year. So, they really were in the American dream. And that's going to be the reality, is that people are fleeing the city. New York City has 33,000 abandoned apartments right now. People are absolutely fleeing to the suburbs. There's going to be a radical shift of population in America. And you know what? There are places where the American dream does exist. And South Dakota is a perfect example. My dad said it was the most unbelievable people, true patriots, Christian conservatives, and couldn't have been treated nicer. And, I mean, that really is going to be the American dream.
But you know what, Eliakim? I'm just wondering when it's going to be that these places that are, quote-unquote, the American dream out there in the burbs or in the country are going to start saying the Jews are behind this. The Jews are behind this. We already saw signs on the Los Angeles freeways over there saying that Jews are the cause for race wars. Honk if you agree. And people were honking, just in even a small clip of what I saw. And, a lot of these people, a lot of the Americans in the redneck believe, what they're told, that it's the Jews, the banksters. They're told that we have a listener right now in the chat room who I know believes that the Jews are, quote-unquote, banksters, etc. The Jews own Hollywood, but what about all the non-Jews that own Hollywood, right? And in any case, we'll be right back, everybody, for our last segment. Don't go anywhere.
You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
This is Shai Ben-Tekoa, and each week I'll be webcasting to you from Judea, origin of the word Jew, a people besieged and beleaguered in every generation. Nazi Germany's but a memory, but in its place the world invented the phantom Palestinians as this generation's internationally authorized Jew killers. Tune in for a different slant on life in Israel, Phantom Nation, every Monday.
Hi, I'm Rabbi David Aaron. The soul basics are the most profound, the most essential, and yet often the most neglected in our education. Join me for Soul Talk on Israel's News Talk Radio and discover the secrets to love, spiritual growth, and personal power.
How did a nice Jewish girl from Delaware end up living in Israel? Shalom, I'm Natalie Sapinski. Join me on my show, Returning Home. Meet different people who have moved to Israel. Hear their personal stories, their highs, their lows, and everything in between. Each week, we talk to experts on immigration and the process of moving to Israel. Listen to Returning Home every Thursday, only on Israel News Talk Radio.
All right, we're back here at the Tamar Yonah Show on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com, and we're talking about what's going on in the United States right now and the Jewish people. They need to come home. I want to say something before we go back online and take our we have another caller waiting online, but whatever happens November, and I had a listener that wrote me in a few letters, furious with me, because he says I am fear-mongering, I am an alarmist, and I said, yes, I believe that things are going to be very bad for the Jews in the United States, all over the world, in fact, but especially in the United States with what we're seeing right now. And I'm trying to ring the bell. You know, I'm no Jabotinsky, but I remember my father telling me that Jabotinsky was going around to synagogues in Europe yelling and screaming to the Jews that Europe is on fire and get out. And there are many synagogues that didn't want to let him speak, which really resonated with me. And I want to say that whatever happens in November, I believe it is not going to be good. If the left wins and the Democrats get in, it's not going to be good for America. It's going to turn socialist, and the American dream is over as we knew it. And if Trump wins, I believe that the leftists there are going to burn America down. They're not going to take it. They've already got at least 600 lawyers lined up to contest the elections if Trump wins. Hillary Clinton has told Joe Biden, whatever you do, do not concede. They are not going to let Trump win. And you don't want to be there when this happens. You want to get out before it happens, because once it happens, it, God forbid, could be too late. All right. Saying that, let's go to a caller, and then we'll go back talking about Aliyah with our guest. Go ahead. William calling in from the UK.
Yeah, Tamar, you're saying that people are blaming the Jews for all this rioting.
Some people are,
yes. Who funded Black Lives Matter? It was George Soros. And what is he? Is a Jew. You can't blame people for blaming the Jews.
Of course I can. Of course I can. Of course I can.
Wow.
No, you can't blame people. You've got to wake up, Tamar. You've got to wake up and
it's all the Jews' fault, right?
Before
right,
you start
William?
calling everybody an anti-Semite.
William, I'm not calling everybody an anti-Semite. I'm saying that anti-Semitism has woken in the United States, and it's coming out now. I'm not calling everybody. When I'm saying that we have to fight it, but the best way to fight it is to leave.
Well, what does God say? He says, if you won't keep my laws and commandments, I will send the nations against you.
And all the Christians and all the Muslims and all the other people are keeping their commandments, whatever they've been told.
Well, that was the Jews who were supposed to bring the law to the whole world.
Okay, if you want to, you know what?
The Torah says that the Jews were supposed to be priests to the world. Well, the Jews haven't done that, have they, Tamar? They haven't been priests
you know
to
what?
the whole world.
The Jews are the light to the nations. There is no better people in the world today, William, than the Jews who go out and help downtrodden countries after hurricanes and after tsunamis and after earthquakes. The Jews and Israel that's out there. So you cannot tell me that, William. You cannot say that.
Of course I can. You've got to clean your own house before you start.
Okay, and you know what, William? If you want to give me, if you want to thump from the Bible, I will do the same, and then I'll say thank you for your call.
Yeah, but
that is that. William, listen. William, listen to me. The Bible also says those who bless the Jews will be blessed, And those
so
who curse the
we're supposed
Jews
to bless
will be
Jeffrey
cursed.
Epstein, who was a paedophile. And
No, Jeffrey
liked
Epstein
little
should be
kids. So
taken.
We're supposed to bless all Jews, even the
Jeffrey
wicked
Epstein
ones.
and any criminal has to be brought to trial. And in fact, one of the 7 laws of Noah is to make courts of justice
The 7
where
laws of
criminals
Noah were
can't
made
be
up by the
punished and put
rabbis.
away.
You should believe in the Tanakh. You shouldn't believe in the Talmud.
But it shows how little you know, William, that you cannot do the Tanakh. You cannot keep the Torah without the Talmud, because when it says
you
to
can
keep
the Tanakh with the oral law. The Talmud is not the oral law.
The oral law
God
is the
says
Talmud
you shall
is
not
the
add
oral
to my
law.
law or take away from it.
Okay,
the
thank you
Talmud
for your
is an
call.
add-in to the God's
You don't
law.
know what the Talmud is? I bet you don't even know Hebrew and you've never read the Talmud before. You're just parroting
I have read
things.
the Talmud, Tamar. I have read parts of it.
Parts of it. Okay, all right. So you would know. Let's say goodbye to our caller. Thank you very much, William. I don't have time on the show for this, but William, let me leave you with this. You cannot keep the Torah without having the Talmud. If it says to keep the Shabbat, how do you keep the Shabbat? If it says to put a mezuzah on your door, what is a mezuzah? It says to put things on your head and on your arms, the tefillin. What is it? You have to have the Talmud in order to keep the Torah. It's the oral Torah, what Moses got, and enough on that. Okay, so getting back to what's happening in the United States, Eliakim, I want to say that the Jewish people need to remember that we have a homeland, thank God, and I believe that the future of not just the Jewish people, but the next superpower in the world is going to be Israel. What do you have to say about Aliyah?
I absolutely agree, but William actually did make a very good point. I mean, even though he should be in bubble wrap taped to a wall so he can't harm himself, George Soros is the known funder behind this. And what you said about when I mentioned South Dakota and eventually the anti-Semitism will spread there. It's not eventually, because I'm on all the right-wing sites, Breitbart, Gateway Pundit, and you do have a lot of right-wing people that even are very pro-Israel that do blame George Soros. And unfortunately, he is a Jew in name. So, I mean, he actually makes a decent point there. And that's why there is no out here, because we are judged by our worst. He mentioned the 2 people that are in the news now that are literally the worst Jews probably on the planet, Jeffrey Epstein and George Soros. And this is what Jew haters do. I mean, he really just proved the template for the point for why Jews need to wake up, because Israel is, it shouldn't be a refuge. There's a lot of people in Israel that buy safe houses, like people in France 10 years ago used to buy apartments in Tel Aviv. Israel should not be a place where you flee. Israel should be a place where you desire to ascend to. That's why it's called Aliyah. And, I mean, God is doing a very big kindness for the Jewish people in America, that he's giving warning. There's lots of people in the last, 1,000 years that would have loved to have had a 6 or 7 month rehearsal of what's going to happen. And Americans are seeing this. It's in right-wing cities. It's in left-wing cities. I mean, mostly left-wing cities. But, you're seeing chaos everywhere. And always there's Jews involved. I mean, for a Chabad to be burned down at the University of Delaware, I'm from Massachusetts. There's like 8 people in the state of Delaware. And one of those 8 decided to burn down the Chabad house among all the other options that they could have done. They burned down the Chabad house.
You know what? I understand churches are being attacked as well. But let's go very quickly before the show ends. We have another caller. Hi, caller. What's your first name and where are you calling in from?
Hi, I'm Sam. I'm calling from Ohio.
Sorry, Sam calling in from where?
Sam calling from Ohio.
Ohio. Okay, go ahead, Sam.
I've called to ask your guest one simple question about America election before saying my personal idea. My personal idea is that Trump is not a good leader, and we saw that with the way that he handled the pandemic and the Black Lives Matter protests. He literally was killing people with the feds, and he was injuring people in the streets, and I was in the streets and saw all those. So my question is this, because all of this, the sexual assault Trump had, all he had done that made the world laugh at us, because all of this, we the people must vote him out. I'd be glad to know your idea too.
Did you understand his question, Eliakim? Go ahead, then answer.
I'm wondering why you're thinking that the world, America was literally a laughingstock under Obama. Trump came back and restored American pride, American confidence. The economy is skyrocketing. It's only a laughingstock because you seem like a leftist, say that it's a laughingstock, but there's a reason why Trump is able to ram through these trade deals with other countries. America is not a laughingstock. America is not a laughingstock, and people like Dave that called earlier are trying to save America, and Trump is trying to save America. But you know what? That's really irrelevant at this point because it's too far gone. And if Jews can't see that after all the repeating history in our times of turmoil, then I don't know what more can be done. And calling people like Tamar an alarmist and is just nuts. I mean, this is just basic common sense. It's not good for the Jews. Doesn't matter who wins. If the left wins, you know what's going to happen. If the right wins, the left knows. All they have to do is just riot and just say he's not my president, and we're always stuck in the middle. Always stuck in the middle. So Jews, don't flee to Israel. Have some common sense. See what's going on. See that America is burning. See a place like Kenosha that was peaceful 8 days ago and now literally looks like the gates of hell, and realize it is not that far from coming to your doorstep. Think about making Aliyah. Israel is not the perfect country. We also have political problems, but it is a mitzvah in the Torah to settle in the land of Israel, and that is where Jews need to be. And God is not going to be so patient.
All right, that was our caller. All right, and in the last minute that we have on the show, I want to concur with our guest that Israel is the future. The Jewish people should be coming home and ideally coming home before they have to flee, to come home, as we say, benachat, in comfort, and not having to flee with just, God forbid, the shirt on your back. We never know when airports can be closed. Look at this with just a tiny bug that no one can even see. Airports, flights have been canceled. People can't move like they used to. We always think that, I've got my finger on the pulse, I can come whenever I want, and it's not true. And you should get out. You should leave before things get bad and not wait until, God forbid, after they get bad. And I really do hope the best for the United States. I hope that I'm wrong come November. I really do, because America is a wonderful country. It has set a wonderful path for the world to bring this freedom. And I want to encourage everybody as well to visit and follow our guest, Eliakim Cohen. And he has a very new group on Facebook that is growing in leaps and bounds. And it's called the Isra Hub group, ISRAHUB, the Isra Hub Facebook group. We'll try to link to that on the page for the show, the podcast. And thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks so much, Tamar. Really appreciate it. You do great work.
Israel News Talk Radio's chat room. Just click the orange button at the top of the IsraelNewsTalkRadio.home page, log in as yourself or an anonymous guest, and join in on the fun. You'll meet other listeners from all over the world who listen to Israel News Talk Radio, and you can make new friends. Israel News Talk Radio's chat room. It's the closest you can get to being in the studio with us.
We love listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
Where can you get the inside news on Israel? At Israel News Talk Radio, we're dedicated to sharing Israel's inside story with the world by providing our listeners with news on Israeli politics, current affairs, and Israeli Jewish culture. The Israel News Talk Radio homepage also provides you, the listener, with useful information at your fingertips, with scrolling news headlines, weather, currency exchange, Shabbat candlelighting times, and so much more. Our radio programming is always accessible and on demand. We operate absolutely free of charge for everyone, everywhere. If you love what we do, partner with us now by becoming an Israel News Talk Radio supporter. With your support, you'll be inscribed on our Israel News Talk Radio Wall of Fame. There's nothing like us in the world. Be part of something great. Israel News Talk Radio. Straight talk from Israel.
If you love Israel News Talk Radio, then you'll love our Facebook page. We keep you up to date on what's happening in Israel, plus little surprise treasures that we don't share on the radio. Go now to follow us on Facebook. Just look for the Israel News Talk Radio Facebook page, and don't forget to subscribe and follow us by clicking on the like button. We post great stuff there that you'll want to share. Israel News Talk Radio on Facebook, and Israel News Radio on Twitter.
News, opinion, and more. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.